Welcome to Only Talk Sports, everybody. I'm your host, Jeffrey, and tonight we have the live reaction to the West Coast Conference Championship game between the Gonzaga Bulldogs and the St. Mary's Gales. It should be a lot of fun, and I cannot wait for all your guys' reactions down in the comments. And overall, this should be a great game. Both these teams are locks for the NCAA tournament, so there's no problems there. But still, you want bragging rights, and you want to be able to get this big win in the championship game. So I think that both these teams, they're going to be, playing hard in this game, and both teams split the season series. So if you're looking at it from both teams' perspective, they're going to want to get ahead and win the West Coast Conference. So it should be a lot of fun. Thanks for being here inside the pylons. We also have Jeff in here as well. So it should be a lot of fun, and I cannot wait to watch this game and react to it and see what you guys think about this game as well. It should be a lot of fun. Right now, the end of the Horizon League Championship game is wrapping up, and it's looking like Northern Kentucky is going to win. And once the game's over, then Gonzaga St. Mary's is going to tip at 9:05. It's been a lot of crazy results as well. You've got, March Madness right around the corner, but these smaller leagues, there's just so much fun, to watch these smaller leagues with the Cinderellas and everything that you're going to get in March Madness and see which teams come out of these smaller leagues. It's always sad to see, especially in the championship game when the other team loses. They were so close, but the games are always so much fun. I think overall for the Gonzaga St. Mary's matchup between these two teams, I think it's going to be a big key for St. Mary's to try to do everything they possibly can to limit Drew Timme, because if Drew Timme just can, explode and go for a big game, and it's going to be very tough for them to get the win. But, if they're able to, I guess you could say, at least slow him down a little bit and keep the other players in check, then St. Mary's will have a really good shot to win. And Gonzaga is going to have to do everything they possibly can to slow down Aiden Mahaney, because Aiden Mahaney is a fantastic freshman for the Gales, and he's been a big reason why they've had the season that they've had, along with Logan Johnson. He's also another great player. So it should be a very high-level matchup. And even though this is the West Coast Conference, you can't let that fool you when it's a smaller league. Both these teams are fantastic, and they should definitely be factors in March. I don't know inside the pylons. Does St. Mary's pull it off, or does Gonzaga show their dominance during conference tournament time? It should be a lot of fun. It's going to be very interesting. I mean, I know a lot of people, that probably don't pay as much attention to the West Coast Conference that might be watching this game. I mean, overall, you're going to say that Gonzaga is the better team because you've seen them more often, but St. Mary's is good. They have a lot of skill, and their players, even though they're not as athletic as Gonzaga, they play fundamental basketball, and that's what makes it very tough to beat them. And they're a really fundamental basketball team. It's fun to watch. Randy Bennett's been the St. Mary's head coach for a long time, just like Mark Few has at Gonzaga. So both teams don't really have too much of an advantage there. I think that both teams overall, if you're looking at both sides of the ball, I think both teams match up fairly well, and it is one of the best rivalries on the West Coast, even though other rivalries like USC, UCLA are really good, and Washington State in the years past has been a good rivalry. But Gonzaga St. Mary's has really emerged as a top rivalry game on the West Coast for sure. Thanks for being here as well, Jackson. What's up, everybody? It's going to be a lot of fun, man. I'm glad everybody's here so far. I cannot wait for the game to get started. It's going to be awesome. The Horizon League Championship game only has 5 seconds left. Cleveland State's trying, and they just hit a big three, and they're only down by 2 points, but there's only 0.2 seconds left in the game. So if Northern Kentucky can just inbound the ball, then that game should be over, and Northern Kentucky will be going into March Madness, and we'll be getting the Gonzaga St. Mary's game rolling. But, man, there's already been some big results in these smaller conferences. It's just been a lot of fun overall. Because, I mean, you think about it. I mean, these teams, only one of these teams from every conference can get in, and they all play so hard. And I think that's what makes March Madness so fun, because every one of these teams has a chance, and they all play hard, and that's what's so awesome about it. When the teams get to go dance, and the reaction is always some of the best. Inside the pylons, he said, I think there's just too much to ask from St. Mary's to win this game, too many factors. I agree. I mean, Gonzaga is a more talented team than St. Mary's. They have, the NBA talent on the team, but St. Mary's, again, they're kind of like Virginia in a way, even though they're, not the exact same. I still think Virginia overall usually has more talented players, but they're teams that play really good defense. They kind of slow the game down, and they play fundamental basketball, and that's what you got to do to win. Because if you don't, then you're going to let the talent beat you. You have to find a way to neutralize the talent, slow the game down to an extent, play your brand of basketball. And if St. Mary's can do that, then I think that they can have a really good shot to win. And the game is wrapped up. Northern Kentucky, they defeated Cleveland State 63-61 in the Horizon League Championship game. The Norsemen are going to the big dance. What a big win for Northern Kentucky. They've been in the tournament before, so they have experience in the past. Maybe they can provide an upset for a top seed in the NCAA tournament. Tough loss for Cleveland State. They've gotten a much better program lately, but they just fell short by 2 points. Very high level game in the Horizon League, though. The Gonzaga St. Mary's game is going to be coming up real soon. Just a couple, probably about a minute, maybe a minute or two right after this game. It's going to be crazy. Now, for these two teams to get here, Gonzaga had to beat San Francisco, and they won 84-73, and St. Mary's beat BYU 76-69. That was actually a tough game for St. Mary's. They almost lost to BYU, but, I mean, they got the win. BYU has been a solid team, but I think that, both these teams relatively got by. Gonzaga won a little bit easier over San Francisco, but, I mean, both teams, they got by. And as Jackson says, yeah, now we can start the Gonzaga St. Mary's game. That's what everyone's waiting for. It's the first big game, really, even though all these are huge for their respective teams in these little conferences. But Gonzaga and St. Mary's, big game. As Jeff points out, going to be a fantastic game. I think it is, too. I think it's going to be a fantastic high-level game. Thanks for being here, Parker Curie. I'm sure you're looking forward to the game. I know a lot of people are. I love watching the West Coast Conference. I mean, the last few years, it's been a high-level league. It's just so much fun basketball. BYU was a bit down this year, but, you even had teams like Loyola and Marymount that upset St. Mary's and Gonzaga. You had Santa Clara. There's just a lot of solid teams in the West Coast Conference. There's a lot of fun basketball if you can stay up late enough to watch it. But thankfully, this game's on earlier. Jackson says the Jets always a fantastic game when Gonzaga, St. Mary go up against one another. I completely agree. Again, it's becoming one of the best, games in college basketball. And hopefully, as long as Mark Few and Randy Bennett are the head coaches of both teams, it continues to be a high-level game. Now, the game is just tipped off, and Gonzaga's got the ball first. And right now, they're swinging the ball around. So, they're trying to get a feel for it early on. They get it to Timmy on the block. And Timmy misses the first shot. St. Mary's gets the board. Inside the pylons, I think momentum favors St. Mary's. Yeah, I can see that. They're both playing high-level basketball to end the season. Neither team really has anything to lose. They're both in the tournament safely, so. Parker Curie asks, who are you pulling for? I try to, just watch a game. If I have too many rooting interests in it, especially if the team that I'm wanting to win loses, then it's kind of tough. But, I'm just wanting a high-level basketball game. It'd be kind of cool if St. Mary's could get the win, but they've already beaten them, so it's, not too big of a deal. Should just be a great game. Jeff says in response to Jackson, I agree, lots of action. It's already a lot of high-level action early. Neither team can get on the board, but, You can tell that both teams are playing really hard and that they're both really good. They just can't get the ball in the hoop yet. St. Mary's missed, and it got a big block by Timmy. It was a really good defensive play. That's going to be a really interesting factor, see how good Gonzaga's defense does in this game, because Gonzaga's defense has actually struggled this season. They've given up a lot of points in the West Coast Conference, so if they want to be a team that goes far in March, they're going to have to get better at defense, which is something St. Mary's has a lot of, but they don't have as much offense as Gonzaga does. And they just called an offensive foul on Drew Timme. That's huge. It's already his first foul. He's looking for a flop, but they're not going to give it to him. That's funny. Mark Few is an 83% winning percentage. That's insane. I mean, granted, it's in a smaller league, but still, that's really impressive. I mean, overall, when you can win that many games like that, it's insane. Still 0-0, almost 2 minutes in. Inside the Pylons has, in your opinion, if St. Mary shuts down Timme, is there anyone else to look out on Zaga? I mean, Strother's a big, key for Gonzaga. He's a player that could go pro, and Anton Watson, who just missed that shot, he's a good player as well. But I mean, the guard play for Gonzaga is weak. That's what's been their biggest issue lately. Like Rasir Bolton, he's a good player, but still just not the guard play they've had in the past, like Jalen Suggs and some of the other players. But still, the key for Gonzaga is to get good guard play and to find a way to get Timme the ball. If he doesn't, obviously foul out or get in foul trouble, that would be really tough. But their guard play is going to have to play at a high level. That's the key for Gonzaga. Jackson said, Rutro Raggy, Timmy's in trouble with that first foul. I agree. He cannot pick up a second one early. That would really hurt their offense. They're trying to get it to Timme back on the block again. Julian Strother with the drive, and he just missed. St. Mary's tracks down the rebound. They made it a bit more difficult than they needed it to, but they did get it. Still 0-0, almost 3 minutes in. Talk about all this high-level basketball, and neither team scored yet 3 minutes in. That's insane. What a block. Gonzaga with a big block, man, on St. Mary's. As Jeff points out, Timme will be fine. Again, as long as he doesn't pick up another quick foul, he should be okay for sure. St. Mary's misses a three, and Gonzaga gets the rebound. Still no points. This is crazy. Gonzaga finally hit a three. It's 3-0. Big shot. That was a huge shot. Nolan Hickman knocked that one down. It was a big three. Nolan Hickman, he was a player that was committed to Kentucky a couple years ago, but he decided to decommit and now, go to Gonzaga. He's been a player that's taken, a while to get really good, but he's starting to play a little bit better. St. Mary's for 2, so it's 3-2 Gonzaga. Randy Bennett has 505 wins as the St. Mary's head coach in his 22nd season. That's a long time to be a head coach. That's what's so cool about Mark Few and Randy Bennett. They've both been at these schools for so long. And the way I see it with this rivalry, as long as both stay at Gonzaga and St. Mary's, then this rivalry should be good for years to come. But if they do, one of them retires or leaves or, for whatever reason, then one of these teams could definitely go downhill, especially St. Mary's if Randy Bennett's gone, but hopefully they both stay. Gonzaga scored again. It's 5-2. Logan Johnson with the hook shot. Logan Johnson's a player that's been playing much better as of late. He was, kind of a player that fallen off a little bit lately. Wasn't playing as well as he was last year, but man, what a big shot for him. He's got all 4 of the points so far. Timme for 2 down low. That's too easy. If St. Mary's is going to win this game, they can't give easy looks like that. That's just easy right there. Big shot. 7-4 Gonzaga. St. Mary's misses a three. St. Mary's gets the rebound. Logan Johnson misses a three, and there's a foul on St. Mary's. So it's still 7-4 Gonzaga at the first TV timeout. As Jeff points out, what a dunk earlier in the game. I mean, you got to have high-level play, man, in this game. I mean, you got to have good passing. That was a great pass from Rozier Bolton down to Strahler. Huge play overall. And it's definitely going to help out Gonzaga's offense if they can keep doing that. Thanks Inside the Pylons. It is a great way to spend a Tuesday night college basketball with friends, honey buns, watermelon, Chex Mix, and water. You can't get much better than that. You definitely have to have the water for sure. Edward says, yo, thanks for being here, Edward. Jeff says the Inside the Pylons comment, you loaded, man. We got a good crowd right now watching this game as well. Thanks for being here, everybody. If you're new to the channel, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Only Talk Sports. That would be awesome. But again, thanks for being here, everybody. Early start to the game, 7-4 Gonzaga. I think that low key, I mean, Gonzaga has looked a little sloppy so far, but St. Mary's has looked a little bit worse. But both teams did start to pick it up before that TV timeout, which is a good thing for their prospects later in the game. But Timmy got a very easy look down low. If St. Mary's is allowing easy buckets like that all the time, it's going to be very tough for the Gales to get this win. But has been high-level basketball at times so far, a little sloppy, but that is to be expected early on. I mean, overall, you don't want to, get those jitters out as quick as possible. You don't want to let it linger on like 5-6 minutes into the game. It seemed like they started to shake it off around the 3 minutes in more, around the 17-minute mark. They started playing better, but is this any indication of the first 5 minutes of the game? It should be a high-level basketball game. Hopefully, a really close game that goes down to the wire. It is definitely a pretty sight out west. They got showing the sunset out there. It's crazy how, out there it's, still a little bit light outside, while over here it's in the East Coast, it's dark. It's just crazy to see that. There's also a big crowd for this game. Just a huge crowd with the fans for the West Coast Conference. It just goes to show how many people, we're starting to realize how great the West Coast Conference is. That, Gonzaga and St. Mary's, that people want to watch this game live. There's just tons of people. And Drew Timmy's only 2 points for becoming the all-time leading scorer in Gonzaga history. That just goes to show how great of a player he is overall. I mean, he's passed Adam Morrison, Jim McPhee, just tons of great players. And he's only 2 points behind Frank Burgess, which is just insane. I think that Drew Timme, will definitely go down as one of the best, if not the best, Gonzaga Bulldogs player ever. He's been great. And, him and tons of the other bigs in college basketball that have come back because of the fact that you have, the draft not wanting centers that are kind of the old school type players has really helped out college basketball with the high level of play that they provided, like Oscar Tshiebwe, Zach Edey, Trace Jackson, Davis, Drew Timme. They've been really fun to watch, and they've been a big benefit to the schools they've been on. Oh, man, Timme with a spin move. He put that guy in the cleaner. Now it's 9-4 Gonzaga. Again, St. Mary's cannot do that. They just cannot let Gonzaga score that easily if they want to have a shot. Now they turn it over. Gonzaga going down again. Julian Strahler for 2 and 1. That lead is quickly ballooned to 11-4. It's not looking very good for St. Mary's right now. They're going to have to settle things down. St. Mary's has a really good defense, but they are struggling early with that. I mean, Gonzaga, they do have high-level players, even though their guard play hasn't been as good this year, but they look like they're playing at a high level so far. Inside the Pylons asks, who do we think will come out of the ACC? I mean, for the ACC tournament champion, I mean, obviously Miami's the 1 seed, but they've been an inconsistent team. But, I mean, you never know. It could be Duke. North Carolina really needs to advance far, but it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens there. Inside the Pylons, who is the greatest Gonzaga player ever? I mean, that's a tough question. I mean, you got Drew Timme's really making a case to be the best. If he could get a national championship or go really far in this year's tournament, he could be the best. I mean, Frank Burgess was great. Adam Morrison. It's really going to be interesting. Mitchell Saxon for St. Mary's is 2 fouls as well. That's not a very good sign either for St. Mary's. They're one of their starting players is 2 fouls. As Inside the Pylons pointed out, Gonzaga's already starting to pull away. I agree. St. Mary's going to have to settle in quickly. 14-4 Gonzaga. Gonzaga's on a huge run. St. Mary's cannot get anything going on offense, and their defense is letting them down right now. 9-0 run for the Bulldogs. Gonzaga's playing really good defense. This will really bode well for them in the tournament if they can keep this up right now. St. Mary's finally scored to stop the run. It's 14-6. And there's another foul on St. Mary's. That's another problem. They're starting to rack up fouls. So if they can't get a stop, a missed shot, then they're fouling. That's not a good sign for St. Mary's if they can't get stops on Gonzaga's. So they've already got 4 fouls to Gonzaga's 1. It's not a great sign right there. I agree with you Inside the Pylons. Don't go for 3, St. Mary's. If you strike out from 3, don't continue to try 3s. I agree. I can't stand when teams do that because, if you're struggling from 3, drive, get to the hoop. If you want to win, because the 3s aren't falling, that's not going to help you come back if you can't make them. And Julian Strother hits a ridiculous 3. It hit the back iron, and it just floated in. Everything's going Gonzaga's way right now, 17-6. That is insane. Shot hit the back of the iron, went 40 feet in the air. Probably exaggeration, but it went way up in the air and dropped in. That's insane. And St. Mary's had a wild 2 and missed. They did get the rebound, though. Good rebound. And he missed a dunk but got fouled. So that's going to at least help St. Mary's potentially to get to the line and hit some free throws to try to slow the Bulldogs' momentum. But, man, it is not looking good early right now. Gonzaga's up 17-6. And the crazy thing is again, you talk about St. Mary's defense, and that's the key for them to win this game and to be a factor in March Madness and maybe make a run. But they're struggling right now on the defensive end, and that's not a good sign. You cannot have the defense give up easy layups and dunks, and that's what they're doing right now. I mean, yeah, Julian Strother just hit a ridiculous 3, but even besides that, you're still struggling on that side of the ball. And you're giving Gonzaga relatively easy points. And Gonzaga's actually been the team that's been playing better defense. They've done a really good job stopping the Gales. So if this continues, then it's going to be a really good night for the Gonzaga Bulldogs, and they'll be able to get a relatively easy win. But still, it's early in this game. St. Mary's and Randy Bennett might have something up their sleeves, and they were down big at home against Gonzaga earlier this year, and they were able to come back. So you never know. I mean, you look at St. Mary's, they are a team that is capable, if they start playing lockdown defense, of being able to come back. I mean, I don't know if they're necessarily, a team that if they get down too much, they'll be able to come back late in the second half. But if they can just keep it within 10 to maybe 12 points and there's 11 minutes left in the game and then they start to make their run, it's possible. But Gonzaga just cannot get ahead by too much and get too much momentum, or it won't be good for St. Mary's. As Inside the Pylons points out, Oral Roberts is leading big too, surprisingly. I mean, it is a little bit surprising, but Oral Roberts does have Max Amos, one of the best scorers in college basketball. He averages over 25 points a game. He's a really short guard, and when Oral Roberts made the tournament a couple years ago, they upset, I think if I remember, Ohio State. Sorry, Inside the Pylons, but they did. And then they lost to Arkansas in the next round. So definitely they are a team to be reckoned with. I mean, Max Amos, if they can win, they're a team that could definitely advance in the tournament because they have a score like that. These are going to be big free throws for St. Mary's to try to get this game within 10. If they can get it back down to 9 points, then maybe they can settle it down. Hey, Hummus Hero, thanks for being here. Got a big game on deck right now. Came right into a bad memory. Sorry about that. For sure, Oral Roberts beating Ohio State. I couldn't believe that. But, I mean, Max Davis, I think they had Kevin O'Banner too. And Kevin O'Banner ended up transferring to Texas Tech. But, yeah, I mean, that team was really good. And obviously Oral Roberts doesn't have Kevin O'Banner this year, but still. Inside the pond, what did you think about Richmond's big win over UMass earlier today? Yeah, I mean, UMass, Frank Martin, he really didn't have his best first season ever that he could have had at UMass. I mean, he had a really good, run with South Carolina for a couple seasons, especially the 2019 Final Four, but things went downhill. Did not have a great first year at UMass. I mean, Richmond, they got Tyler Burton. He just dominated the game. I don't know if Richmond's going to be able to go far in the A-10 tournament, but you never know. It is possible. St. Mary's is 19-10. Gonzaga, I mean, you look at the way they're playing on offense, they're still basically getting whatever they want. St. Mary's just cannot find a way to get stops. But Gonzaga finally airballed a three, but Julian Strother got the rebound. They can't get the ball. They just can't get one stop to try to cut this lead. And Julian Strother, he drove in and thought it went off his foot, but nah, they called it off of St. Mary's. Austin says, "What's up, Jess? Cool. Thanks for being here, Austin." And Hummus Zero points out a great question. Will Gonzaga ever win it all? That's a great question. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, people, they want Gonzaga to win it all because if they don't, then they're never going to, I guess, be considered an elite program. I mean, I know they're like in the elite part of college basketball. They're toward the top, but they have to win, a national title under Mark Few for them to like cement themselves as a, top program, at least for like this era. But I mean, will they ever win it? I think they've already had better chances that they've squandered, but it will be interesting to see. I think it's possible, but I think this the Suggs team and Timmy, that was the year. They had to win it that year, and they just couldn't get it done. Like I said, thanks for being here, Austin. It's great to see you guys all here. Got a really good game between Gonzaga and St. Mary's. Hopefully for St. Mary's, they can get it closer, so add some intrigue, but Gonzaga's looking good early. Logan Johnson is a really talented player. He just had a good move. He missed, but he got his own follow-through and won. 19-12. Gonzaga. St. Mary's is making a little bit of a run. They might have called it on the floor. They haven't put up the points yet. They might have called it on the floor. So they didn't get him the 2. I thought they were giving him an and 1, but they didn't give it to him. So it's 19-11 now. But still, I mean, they're cutting it a little bit. Maybe those free throws can get Logan Johnson going. They've cut it to 7 now. So it's 19-12 Gonzaga with 10 minutes left in the first. Timmy's got it down low again where he's dangerous, and that's just easy. That's just so easy for Drew Timme. If he's getting the ball that low on the block, it's over. I mean, they just can't stop him, especially with Mitchell Saxton out. Now he's the all-time leading scorer in Gonzaga history. Congratulations, Drew Timme. You deserve it. You've been fantastic for Gonzaga. St. Mary's with a wide-open 3, and they brick it. Gonzaga with the board. Greg, he got it. I agree with you, Austin. I think Gonzaga's best chance was either 2021 or 2017. I agree, especially 2021. That was the year, but they just couldn't beat Baylor. They would have been undefeated that year as well, which was crazy. They'd have taken Indiana's record. And Greg with the air ball. And St. Mary's throws it away. 21-12 Gonzaga. St. Mary's just cannot get in a rhythm on the offensive end right now. That's the issue. I mean, Timme just getting that easy look on the block. I mean, again, you just cannot do that if you're St. Mary's. I agree with Jeff. Timme is awesome. He's fantastic. He's had a great career. And even if he never wins a national championship, it doesn't matter. He's still just been so awesome for the Gonzaga program. It's amazing he came back, too. What a pass by Timmy. What a pass. 23-12 Gonzaga. What a pass to Hunter Salas, who has a lot of potential. St. Mary's is getting rattled and a little sped up, which is not good because they're a team that likes to have the game in control, and they just look a little sped up right now. Does not bode well for their chances of a comeback. They have to settle in this game. I don't think they actually have yet. Oh, what a block. What a block by Gonzaga. Ben Gregg. That was a rejection right there. Now that block was timed perfectly. That was fantastic. They did give the ball back to St. Mary's. So there's 1 second on the clock, and they tried to get it, and it was an airmail. Gonzaga's got the ball. It was 23-12. So just when St. Mary's had a little bit of momentum, Gonzaga's starting to snatch it away again. St. Mary's is 0 of 5 from 3. That's not going to be a stat that they can continue if they're going to come back. They got to start knocking down some shots. And they got it to Timmy on the block, one-on-one. They did double a little bit, but the problem is that they're going too much one-on-one coverage on him. And they're doubling, but sometimes he's too low in the paint. And St. Mary's fouls yet again, and Gonzaga's going to the line. Yes, Hummus Hero. Buckeye Mike is now inside the pylons. He has changed his name. Took me a while to get used to as well. But Only Talk Sports is still here, everybody. If there's anybody new that's watching, like, comment, subscribe to Only Talk Sports. It really helps the channel out. Thanks for being here watching the game with me. It's been a relatively uneventful first half, with it not being really a close game. Still a lot of high-flying action, but Gonzaga's just looking really good right now. Thankfully for St. Mary's, Gonzaga did miss both free throws on the other end, and now St. Mary's is at the line, so they have a chance to cut it within 10 again. But they just missed their first free throw. That is not going to help. When you're down, you've got to make free throws. And Augustus Marcelionis, who is a 77% free throw shooter, just missed 2 free throws. And St. Mary's is still down 11. St. Mary's is now 4 of 6 at the line. Gonzaga's 1 of 1. Gonzaga's making shots, though. Drew Timmy's just roaming the paint. He did miss, but Gonzaga taps it back out. And Gonzaga for 3. Now it's 26-12. As Edwards said, they only have commits at the moment. One is the 39th player in the country and a 3-star. I agree. I mean, that Gonzaga is kind of trailing down a bit if you look at the recruiting. They had, elite talent, in 2021. They just could not get the championship win. So if Gonzaga can't recruit at a high level, it will be interesting to see how good they can be in the future without Timmy. Inside the pylon, say Gonzaga is too dangerous of a team to play a double team on, but if you don't double Timmy, it will destroy. It's a lose-lose when you play Zaga. Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you look at, this game right here with the way that they're playing, Gonzaga, whatever they're doing is failing because of the fact Gonzaga is making shots. It's kind of like you look at a team like Purdue with Zach Edey. If you double Zach Edey and Purdue, their guards miss their shots, then you can beat Purdue. But if you double Zach Edey and he kicks it out to Fletcher Lohr, Braid Smith, some of their other players, and they hit threes and they're making shots, then they're hard to beat. And that's what Gonzaga is doing right now. Whenever Drew Timme kicks it out, they just get an open shot and they're making it. Edwards said they brought in a 4-star center from the portal this year. He was a borderline 5-star. I agree that they did, but unfortunately hasn't been that useful because of Timme. Timmy is the starting center, which is why I was kind of surprised he did transfer to Gonzaga, but he did. But I mean, sometimes a player just wants to go to a coach that has, a high level, of acumen like Mark Few. I mean, he's one of the best in college basketball, and sometimes getting to be, behind a player like Drew Timme can prepare you for the next season when it will be your time. So, I mean, maybe that's why he did. Austin says second chance points are game changers. I mean, completely correct. I mean, that's exactly what Gonzaga is doing right now. They're getting multiple opportunities to score. If St. Mary's could get the rebound, then they'd probably be in better shape, but they just can't. As Jeff points out, St. Mary's looks ragged and rattled. I agree. I mean, the thing is with St. Mary's, again, they're a team that they need defense to win games like this. If they're playing one of the worst teams in the WCC, then they can get away with not having a great offensive game. But when you're playing Gonzaga, you have to give it your all on defense if you're not scoring a lot of points. And their defense is not keeping them in this game, and neither is their offense, and that's just a bad combination. As Edward points out, Gonzaga does have a good rep with centers. That's probably why. I agree. Plus, again, to learn and develop behind Drew Timme is probably a big reason why he decided to transfer to Gonzaga, because it was surprising. Yeah, Oral Roberts has beaten North Dakota State 41-14 right now. That's a blowout. But again, when they're on, man, they're really tough to beat. Yeah, also in other news tonight, Notre Dame lost to Virginia Tech, and Mike Bray, his time as the Notre Dame head coach is over. It's really sad, an end of an era. He was there for 23 years, but I mean, it just Notre Dame's last couple of years was just not very good. And Florida State really struggled this year as well with Leonard Hamilton, and they lost. And unfortunately for Austin, Louisville did not get the win either against Boston College. So just, unfortunate for those teams in the ACC. St. Mary's, can they make a comeback and make this game interesting? The Gales are trying, but they just look rattled. They're fumbling the ball, and they're just not very decisive with their passes right now. Logan Johnson has to make that shot for St. Mary's. He drove in and he missed the layup. He's a very talented player. He's probably the most talented player on their team, but he missed. Good defense by St. Mary's on Gonzaga's missed layup. Logan Johnson dribble, and he kicks it to another player. As Edward says, Notre Dame team stinks and has zero fight. I agree. They were not very good this year. And inside the pylons, can Kansas make a repeat? It's possible. They have the talent enough to do it, but it will be tough because no team really, it's like far and away better than another team this year. There's all the teams look beatable at some point, but Kansas definitely could if they get a good bracket and Grady Dick and Jalen Wilson just start making big shots game in and game out. And Drew Timme with two more, 28-12. The Bulldogs are running away with this one. Connor Johnson says UCLA. It's possible. I mean, the Bruins have been a great team this year, and they're a team that is good at defense. But, I mean, they just have to play like that all the time. One bad game and you're out. St. Mary's finally gets an easy dunk, 28-14. Hummus Hero, he said, I didn't realize Sarunas Marcelona's son played for St. Mary's. Yeah, it's crazy, man. I mean, he missed those two big free throws, though. I mean, you got to make your free throws. And Connor says UCLA has most loaded with vets. I agree. I mean, UCLA, if they had Johnny Juzang as well, they'd be even more loaded. But he left. But still as is with Tiger Campbell, Jaime Jaquez, they got a team. I agree with Edward 100%. I don't know. This year's the most open tournament in the last 10 years. It for sure. No team just looks like they can run away with it. They all have flaws to some point. Clark, too, like Connor Johnson says, yeah, UCLA's got a really good team. And they've been the more consistent team in the Pac-12 this year, unlike Arizona, who is also really talented, but they've had a lot of games this year where they've just laid an egg. Arizona's going to have to play at a high level game in and game out if they want to advance far. Inside the Pylons bringing the football commentary. For those that want to know, USFL season tickets for certain teams and all single game tickets go on sale tomorrow. I'm sure there's definitely a lot of people that are interested in that for sure. It's cool. Football's awesome. But we got a high-level basketball game on right now, and if St. Mary's can make it interesting, then it would be even better. But still, 29-14 lead for Gonzaga right now with 5 to go in the first half. St. Mary's for 2 is 29-16 with 5 to go. Connor points out Mountain West is good, if not better, than the Pac-12 in basketball this year. I think overall the Mountain West, you can make an argument, is the better conference than the Pac-12. At the top, it's the Pac-12 with Arizona and UCLA. But the depth of the Mountain West is fascinating because you got like UNLV, who's like the 7 or 8 seed in the tournament, and they have, a pretty decent record of like 18-12 overall or 18-13, which is crazy in the Mountain West. I just think the Mountain West is more good teams than the Pac-12 does. So that's where you're absolutely correct. I mean, like you said, unfortunately, the Pac-12 is California. That's definitely a problem. I mean, the Mountain West doesn't have that. Mark Fox is still employed, which is insane. Hopefully he can somehow turn it around, but I don't know. Jeff points out Tiger is the best hair. Tiger Campbell, I mean, hey, he plays really well, man. What do I think of the Pac-12 falling apart? I think it's sad overall. I mean, you don't want to see any, conference disintegrate. I mean, losing USC and UCLA is just huge for the Pac-12. It's just so tough. But, I mean, hopefully they can keep it together somehow with the remaining teams that they have, but it's going to be very tough. So St. Mary's got another stop. It's still 29-16 with 4:30 to go in the first half. St. Mary's is trying to bring the ball up. Gonzaga's done a lot of full court press, which has definitely thrown off the Gales. Smart move by Mark Few. It's making them take longer in their offense, even though they're usually a slower offensive team anyway. But it's just making the Gales very indecisive on their passing. They're panicking a lot, too. Logan Johnson tried to do a hook shot. He missed, but St. Mary's gets the rebound. Another missed layup for St. Mary's. They're missing tons of layups. Connor Johnson, Bucker might try to rope me in. Oh, that's funny. And Timmy open for another layup. 31-16 Gonzaga. It's just too easy. They're just giving him way too many easy shots. He's got 10 points, 5 of 7 from the field. A very easy 10 points, mind you. Can St. Mary's get this to 10 before the half? I think they have to get it to at least around 9 or 10 points at half if it's going to bode well for their chances in the second half. And they brick another 3. Timmy could not get the rebound, though. And St. Mary's hits a big 3. They've cut it to 12. That's huge. Inside the Pylon said, do you like the idea to bring up G5 schools to keep the Pac-12 above water? Yeah, I mean, you're not going to be able to replace what you're losing. I mean, losing USC, UCLA is too much, that you're not going to really help too much with SMU and San Diego State. But it's the move they had to make if they want to stay alive for sure. Edwards is absolutely right. St. Mary's is struggling to rebound. That's been their Achilles heel in this game. Timmy's on the right block yet again. And he's getting fouled and going to the line. They just can't stop him. Connor's right. SMU and San Diego State are the only ones that add value, even though it's small. I think they'd take a pay cut. I agree. Hey, John, thanks for being here. Hopefully St. Mary's can cut it to make the game more interesting. It's been a good game, overall. It's been fun to watch, but St. Mary's is definitely struggling right now. Edwards says it's about TV money. That won't help with a new TV deal. I mean, TV money has so much to play, with all these moves. I mean, that's why these moves have been made with the SEC and the Big Ten, because they know that, especially like with the Big Ten with the Southern Cal school, that's just huge. I mean, adding them is, going to infinitely raise the amount of money they're going to make, and that's definitely why they're adding them. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I like it best when the conferences were the way they used to be back in the 90s, but unfortunately, it just isn't ever going to go back to that. I mean, that's why, like with Gonzaga, people were wondering if Gonzaga is going to go to the Big 12 or the Pac 12. It's been more rumors with the Big 12, but I mean, how much are they going to succeed in the Big 12, especially if Mark Few retires in a few years? It'd probably be better for Gonzaga if they stay in the West Coast Conference with, looking at it from, that point of view. But still, if there's enough money involved with, the deal with the Big 12, then I think that, they're going to move, but they probably shouldn't. Connor asks, which Mountain West basketball team makes it the furthest in the tournament? That's a great question. I mean, I think that if you're looking at Mountain West, San Diego State's probably the best team. But still, Boise State's capable. Nevada, Utah State. If Nevada makes the tournament, they're capable. Utah State seems to be in good shape right now. New Mexico faded. New Mexico is going to be interesting to see if they can somehow pull a 180 and win the Mountain West Conference tournament because they were really good early on. They just completely fell apart. But it's going to be interesting. I would say San Diego State has the biggest potential, but any one of them could advance. That would be really interesting. John pointed out, do we think Gonzaga could pull a 1940s and bring back football if they go to the Big 12? That'd be cool. That'd be awesome. Connor thinks the Wolf Pack back to pack. Hey, Steve Alford, Indiana alum. I mean, he's got, pretty good coaching acumen. I know UCLA fans were not a big fan of him because he didn't win enough, but still he was a pretty solid coach overall. It just wasn't what Mick Cronin's doing. And Connor Johnson asks, is Nevada's on the boat? Yeah, they're like in the last four in or last four buys. I mean, unfortunately, you just have to win a lot to in the Mountain West to move up in the bracket. I mean, I think Nevada's, like I said, in the last four buys area. Boise State's like a 10 seed, and they're only moving up because they beat San Diego State recently. San Diego State's like a 9 or an 8 seed. I think Utah State's like around the Nevada area, maybe a little bit better shape, and New Mexico's out right now. And they were in the field, just up until like a week and a half ago, but they just completely faded. And I do agree. Jared Lucas is a great player. I always hated it for him because, he was the only player on that team that won like 3 or 4 games last year that was even playing at a high level. And the year before that, when they upset, won a lot of teams and won the Pac-12 tournament, he was a really good player. Yeah, Furman getting the big win over Chattanooga when Chattanooga being the year before on that last second 3, that was huge. Now they're going to be in the tournament. They could be dangerous. They could be dangerous. They could be a team that is one of the Cinderellas in March Madness for sure. And Drew Timme hits 2 free throws, so now the score is 33-19. Again, I think it's imperative for St. Mary's that they somehow cut this lead down to at least 10 at half to have a really good shot in the second half. And the leading scorer for St. Mary's and Logan Johnson only has 6 points. That's just not going to get it done. They did call a foul on Anton Watson, but that's only the 6th foul on Gonzaga, so no free throws yet for St. Mary's. That is a good point, Connor Johnson. If he wasn't injured too tall, Lucas would make the league. He's an elite shooter with an elite release. I agree. It's unfortunate they only want players that are really tall now. They don't want like Allen Iverson, height players, Ty Lawson, even Muggsy Bogues or Spud Webb. I mean, those guys are really short. They just don't take guys like that anymore. Yogi Ferrell from Indiana, he's in Europe. It is what it is. They like the tall point guards now because of defense and stuff. St. Mary's misses again, and now Gonzaga's got the ball up 14 with under 2 to go in the first half. In St. Mary's with yet another foul. They fouled Greg. He's going to the line. They just can't get stops, unfortunately. They just can't get stops. Gonzaga, usually it ends with a score or some free throws, and that's just not going to get it done. I mean, they only have 34 points, which, I mean, Gonzaga, it's not like a lot, but St. Mary's only has 19. That's just not very good. Inside the pile said the game's going by fast. I agree. I mean, it's, been a relatively foul-free game, even though, both teams are technically in the bonus now, but it hasn't been too bogged down by fouls. St. Mary's can just hit 2 threes and stop Gonzaga the rest of the half. They can get back in this game. St. Mary's misses again, and another great box out by the Bulldogs. Gonzaga's moving it down the floor, 35-19 with 1:10 to go in the first. St. Mary's only at 7 shots in the first half. And Gonzaga with 2 more from Timmy, 37-19. St. Mary's is starting to fall to a point where if they don't start cutting this lead, man, they're not going to be able to come back in the second half. Kick ball by Greg, so St. Mary's is going to be inbounded. I definitely didn't think that Gonzaga was going to have an 18-point lead in the first half. I thought St. Mary's might play a little tougher. St. Mary's with another missed layup. He was looking for a foul. They didn't call it. Gonzaga up 18 points in 40 seconds. Gonzaga's looking for a really good shot in the first half. They're getting it to Timmy on the block again. He's got the double. And another foul on St. Mary's. More free throws for Gonzaga. They just cannot get stops. I agree inside the pause. This hill might be too steep to climb for the second half. And Aiden Mahaney now has 2 fouls, and he only has 2 points. And he's the leading scorer for St. Mary's. Aiden Mahaney and Logan Johnson are going to have to get it going in the second half if they're going to be able to come back. I mean, they're the leading scorers, and they only got 6 and 2. That's just not going to get it done. Connor says, Chevy working on his color commentary skills. I'm trying. Am I doing good? Gonzaga is just playing really hard as well. It's like they want to get revenge on St. Mary's, even though they did already beat them, to end the West Coast Conference regular season, and they got to share the West Coast Conference title. Thanks, Inside the Ponds. Thank you. Gonzaga is also out rebounding St. Mary's 17-12, which is another key. And now Gonzaga can hold the ball the rest of the half because St. Mary's couldn't get the ball. I mean, if they hit another 3 here and it's like 40-19 and a half, that just might be a dagger. I mean, teams have come back from 20 down this year. We've seen several comebacks in the NBA and in college. But you never know. But St. Mary's just isn't really built to do that. Gonzaga misses a layup. St. Mary's gets the ball with 2 seconds and a half-court heave. They don't do a half-court heave, and they pass it to Logan Johnson. And the half, it's 37-19. Gonzaga. Terrible first half for St. Mary's overall. Their defense wasn't doing much, and their offense was really struggling. And they're going to have to do a lot better in the second half if they want to come back. While it's halftime, I'm going to bring in the StreamYard link if you guys want to come in and talk to me during halftime, see what you think about the game or some other things related to college basketball. I don't matter what you want to talk about. It's been a really good game, but I'm sure that obviously a lot of you guys are probably expecting it to be a closer game. I mean, I think that, Gonzaga is playing well. And again, this bodes well for their, tournament hopes if they want to, advance far, in the NCAA tournament. But I do think that St. Mary's is having a relatively, I wouldn't say awful, but they're not playing well this first half. and I thought they were going to play much better, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, St. Mary's offense at times does tend to fall asleep, but still, I mean, they're a team that usually does better. Thanks, Jeff, for that. Thank you.
So,
hey, Jack. How you liking the first half?
Well, they're shellacking St. Mary's. I guess this looks all right for the occasion.
Yeah, they're definitely the team looking better. I'll definitely agree with you there.
Oh man, this is a great night tonight, and we got ourselves a great week ahead of us. So I read an article this week it was today from Connor O'Gara, and it was on Saturday down south, and there was like a discussion of should there still be conference tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
And Matt Painter, the Purdue coach, this like almost 3 weeks ago after they lost to Maryland, and he says via the Indianapolis Star, I'm not really worried about the Big Ten tournament. I'm worried about the NCAA tournament. What's your take on that, Jeffrey?
Well, I mean, I like the conference tournaments. I mean, because they're fun and, it gives every team a chance to make the tournament because like the smaller conferences, because if you don't have the conference tournaments and you base it off of the regular season, assuming that in this scenario they would keep the smaller teams making the NCAA tournament, then you're not giving the other teams a chance. You don't get these high-level games in the conference tournament if they, get rid of them. And you're not going to have it where these teams are going to play hard at the regular season, the teams at the bottom, because they have no chance to make the tournament. So I think they should keep it. I mean, is the system perfect? No, because, a team that's the number one seed has played well all year in their conference that's small loses, and then they don't get to make the tournament because of the fact that a team that's lower, like a 4 or 5 seed in that conference, did end up winning it. So, I mean, you're never going to have a perfect system, but this at least gives every team a chance to make the NCAA tournament. And I like that the smaller conferences are represented because they do provide a lot of fun.
Right. So, yeah, because it's going to be really fun, but I just wonder what's going to happen with, Gonzaga, because, they looked sloppy earlier this year, but now they're not looking really sloppy, especially tonight. Are we going to see more of tonight's Gonzaga, or are we going to see the sloppy Gonzaga against Loyola Marymount in March Madness next week?
Well, that's going to be really interesting. I mean, I think Gonzaga is a team that their guard play was poor earlier on in the season. It's getting better, and that's been a big reason why they have, been on a big winning streak, and they were able to get the revenge on St. Mary's at the end of the regular season. But all it takes is one bad game by the guards, and they're done, especially if they're playing a good team. And even though they have been playing much better, it's still West Coast Conference level play. We don't know how they're going to play once they have to readjust to playing a bigger school, so it will be interesting to definitely see which version of Gonzaga comes out in the tournament. Because if it's this version, they could make a run. What are you thinking about this one, Buckeye Mike?
Well, at the beginning, I thought it'd be a good one, but Gonzaga has basically become Gonzaga like usual and is just taken over, and we're seeing complete, utter control and domination, mostly from inside the arc, especially down low inside the paint from Timmy. And as far as Jackson's question, it's really, to your point, hard to tell because it could be a completely different version than any of the versions we've seen from Gonzaga. Because as we all know, unless you're Duke, Carolina, or Kansas, you just are completely different than we see in the regular season in the tournament. The interesting thing for me personally is who do we think in the conference tournaments, or the big ones, who do we think has the best chance to make a deep run to qualify? Because if you ask me, from my perspective, we know who I root for, and I'm already throwing in the towel. It would be lucky if we can get past Rutgers in that first round, but we're not making a big enough run. I don't even know how we qualified for the Big Ten tournament. But this game specifically, it's nice to see Gonzaga's defense the way that it's producing. We're basically seeing them shut down a really good St. Mary's team, and nobody's getting a real good enough look to put a dent in the lead. And as I said in the chat, you're screwed either way when you play Gonzaga, because you can double team Timmy, but if you double team Timmy, you're leaving another threat wide open somewhere else on the floor. Mm-hmm. And if you don't double team Timmy, they're just going to do what they've been doing in the first half. Mm-hmm. So it's does St. Mary's go in to halftime and realize, okay, what we came out and did in the first half is absolutely not working, both in our favor and against us, as far as the offense and defensive side of the ball. So what decisions do they make to make the changes to hopefully come out on fire in the second half and make a decent, even if it's just a small, come right out, make a 10-0 run, and then you go cold in a little stretch? Can St. Mary's put these stretches together to make this close and respectable? Because at the rate this game is going, it's just Gonzaga is just going to mop the floor with St. Mary's, and it stinks to see. I mean, I like Gonzaga just as much as the next guy, but I don't like seeing this kind of competition. I mean, this is just an easy walk in the park for Gonzaga at this point, and it all rests on St. Mary's shoulders.
I think an underrated part of this game, that many people probably aren't thinking about because both these teams are in the tournament easily, is that St. Mary's probably, if they lose this game, which is looking that way, even though you never know, they need to lose this game respectively. You don't want to get blown out, because if you do, they could drop a seed line or two just for this loss if they lose by like 20, 25. Because they're going to say, well, St. Mary's, you're good. You beat Gonzaga on your own floor, but you just got destroyed in the West Coast Conference Championship game. Yeah. Since you're a smaller team, we're going to drop you to a 6 or a 7 seed. And that makes the first game for St. Mary's a lot harder than if they're a 5 seed, which I think is where they're at right now, where they would play a team like Furman or something, and they could get maybe a good win. St. Mary's is in protected territory right now, like Gonzaga, if I think that's the term. But you don't want to lose.
Right.
You just don't want to lose big. Hey, Will.
Hey, guys, I'm glad I'm not watching this game, man. I just wanted to check in, come in. Oof.
What's up?
What's up, guys?
I thought it was going to be closer.
Yeah. Man,
like I said, it's hard to call and predict a Gonzaga game, because you're either going to get this or you're going to get the St. Mary's win Gonzaga.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure Gonzaga fans are thanking God. They're getting hot now. Maybe they can actually do something in March Madness now.
I wonder, though, because it's going to be fun to wonder.
I mean, they could choke, but you got to at least having more confidence than you were earlier in the year. Now, with the way they're playing now.
Sorry, Will, that Notre Dame finally ended with
it's
all over.
I mean, it was like Jesus was on the cross and then he finally died. Like we knew it wasn't gonna end well. And then it ended.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, he was there for 23 years. He was a staple. It's just, unfortunately.
I mean, that Elite Eight run against Kentucky, that'll always have a special place in my heart, that run. And I feel like the refs kind of jobbed us in that game. But, I'm not going to complain about it too much. That game was a while ago. But, man, Pat Connaughton was on that team, though, and he won an NBA championship. So there's that. He was the best. Yeah. He was the best player on that team. I freaking love Pat Connaughton, man. I remember when we played Wisconsin a year or two ago in football, and he was celebrating with Brady Quinn watching the game. I'm like, oh, this is what Notre Dame's all about, man.
Oh man.
Well, the bird with teeth got beat by Boston.
Yeah.
80-62.
They were doing good in the first half. I mean, I thought there was a shot, but Boston College started making shots in the second.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they had a bad.
What do you guys think of some of these college basketball conference tournament formats?
I think they're a lot of fun.
Oh no, I do. What do you think of the formats though? Because I mean, like, okay, if you look at the Big Ten, for example, that first round that has 2 games, it's basically a play-in.
Yeah.
To me, those 4 teams don't even deserve to be in it. And guess what? Ohio State's in one of those games. I mean,
yeah, they're playing Wisconsin, I think. In it, the 4 is Nebraska, Minnesota, and it's Ohio State, Wisconsin, or something like that. And I mean, Wisconsin's the 12th seed, but yet they're on the bubble. I mean, think about that. Wisconsin is the 12th seed, but they're on the bubble. Like Joe Lenard's in the last 4 in or the first 4 out, one of the two, and they're in the first game. Like that goes to show you how weak the bubble is this year.
It's sad.
And they want to add more teams. It's like you want to get rid of the smaller conference teams like Furman and Virginia Commonwealth if like the Atlantic 10's down or whatever. But you want to add more teams to the Power 5, but yet Wisconsin's in the last 4 in right now.
Oh, man.
I mean, you can't add any more Power 5 teams. You just can't.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what I think the rules should be, gentlemen. You guys may disagree. Mm-hmm. You cannot make the tournament if you have a losing record in your conference. I think that should be the rule.
The only time I disagree with that is the Big 12 this year.
I mean, I know, but still, I understand that, but I still think it just seems backwards to me.
I mean, are you talking about the conference tournament?
No, NCAA tournament.
Well, see, here's the thing, and that's why these formats are the way they are. Because for example, if Ohio State makes a big run and wins the Big Ten,
if they win the conference tournament, they're in, but not as an at-large. I don't think as an at-large you should be able to get in with a losing conference. If Ohio State wins the Big Ten tournament, they should be in the NCAA tournament. Mm-hmm. But even if they make it to like the final and still lose, shouldn't be in.
Well, I mean, doesn't Iowa State have a losing record in conference? Aren't they like 8-9?
Yeah.
Something like that. And Iowa State is a team that's like a 5 seed or 6 seed in the tournament. Or maybe they're a little lower, but they're safely in. They're like at least in the top 8 seeds because of the way the conference was. I mean, I completely agree with you. Like, if you're in the ACC this year or the Big Ten, for the most part, you shouldn't make the tournament with a losing record. SEC, Pac-12, losing record in conference, but the Big 12 is the exception. The Big 12 is the only conference where there are teams that are deserving to be in with a losing conference record because they all beat up on each other. Oklahoma has a losing record overall, and they beat Alabama by 24. They almost beat Kansas. So Oklahoma is like 15-16, and they're a quality team.
I know. I mean, I don't know. Like, maybe I'm just being a bitter non-mid-major fan, but yeah. I understand your point, Jeffrey. But just like when I look at these teams' records and they have like 15 losses and get in.
Oh, I mean, completely agree. I mean, like Michigan, Wisconsin from the Big Ten should not be considered for the tournament. Yeah. I mean, like Michigan's like 17-14, and they're like in the first 4 out.
That's freaking ridiculous.
And they only have like 3 quad 1 wins. Oklahoma at 15-16 has like 5 or 6 quad 1 wins. Put Oklahoma in instead. Like, you just put the whole Big 12 in the field. Because those teams at least have better resumes. I mean, like North Carolina. I mean, home state, North Carolina. I don't want them to miss a tournament, but they only have 1 quad 1 win, even though their record's 19-12. They're not deserving of a tournament.
Yeah.
They haven't done anything. They beat Virginia. So, I mean, that's it. And Virginia's kind of slipped lately.
Yeah.
I mean, Edward, his team, Clemson, they're on the outside.
Clemson deserves to be in over North Carolina, in my opinion.
I don't disagree with that, but Clemson's resume is still really weak. It's just the ACC is unfortunately weak this year.
Yeah.
So, something I was just thinking about, maybe Hunter Dickinson of Michigan can be the Jerry McNamara of conference tournaments.
Maybe.
Huh?
It's funny, man. So this is a funny. I mean, if you can cut off my story if you want, but me and my dad, we always like to go to the WCAC tournament and stuff like that. And we were going to like a big regular season game between like two top 25 high school teams in the country, and it was packed. Like the place was packed. It was a small gym. The only spots available were by the parents of the away team, and we were like by Hunter Dickinson's parents. It was like crazy. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's now like a freaking star in Michigan. And there's this one parent that kept yelling in my dad's ear about their kid. It was funny. Yeah. She was like, come on, Earl. I think Earl started off at Miami, then transferred to Memphis, and now I think he's at some really low major school. So, unfortunately, it didn't work out for Earl, but it did work out for Hunter Dickinson.
Oh,
he's been really good. I mean,
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of, Michigan fans, really upset this season. They should be because, I mean, you look at their team, Hunter Dickinson's a great player. Jet Howard is going to be a first-round draft pick, Juwan Howard's son. Kobe Buffkin's been solid. And yet, they're where they're at. They probably should be, higher than they are.
Yeah.
The second half just started in the game. Does anybody think St. Mary's going to be able to come back?
They are a second half team, but 18 points is too big of a gap to close.
yeah.
But they did. I mean, they did come back when the game was at St. Mary's. Like Gonzaga was up the whole game, but 18 points is too big of a gap.
Yeah,
Immaculate St. Mary's.
Yeah.
No, I don't see them pulling off victory tonight.
Yeah.
They can come back just enough, but they might bring some of that momentum with them for March Madness.
If ECU makes the tournament and wins the conference tournament, I wouldn't mind facing a St. Mary's, man. I think St. Mary's is a decent matchup for VCU.
Oh,
I
man.
I mean,
A VCU St. Mary's matchup, that's so awesome, man.
I mean, I think that's a winnable. I mean, obviously, I would pick St. Mary's, but I think it's a possibility of an upset.
Well, yeah, St. Mary's would have to be a 5 seed for VCU.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Hold on. You're saying you would literally go against your own school?
What do you mean? No, well, like obviously, I mean, I would never bet money against VCU, but like I feel like obviously St. Mary's has more talent. That's what I was saying.
Well, the problem has been for St. Mary's is that their two best players, Aiden Mahaney and Logan Johnson, have not done anything. I mean, they have to carry this team. They're just not getting it done. They're still scoreless in the second half, 39-19 Gonzaga.
And I think like Ace Baldwin and Jaden Nunn, like they're very strong defensive players. So I feel like they would be able to limit them. Maybe not as much, but a bit.
But you know what they say, in March, anything can happen.
Yeah, but I don't know if St. Mary's is going to be a 5 seed. So we might not get them. Who knows?
Maybe St. Mary's VCU can be a 6-11 game or a 7.
It would be nice to be placed as an 11 seed, but that's not where Lunardi has us right now. They have us at the 12.
VCU, I mean, if they hadn't lost to St. Bonaventure, I think
I am terrified of facing Bonaventure in the conference tournament, man.
They could have been
coach Mark Schmidt is so good.
Ooh.
So
and Archie Miller's done. He lost the game.
Oh yeah.
So here's a question.
Yeah.
And
I just looked at the stat line. Okay,
Yeah.
Drew Timme has 2 fouls already. As you've been saying, Timmy's the key. Does St. Mary's play hack-a-shack with Timme? Get Timme out of the game? Because if you could get Timme out of the game and turn the momentum around, go on a 10-0 run or a 8-2 or 10-2 8-2 run for St. Mary's, you have a chance to get back in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, but
yeah,
I mean, Timmy's kind of been Superman for Gonzaga this year, so they kind of have to do that.
Superman in this game, he's got like 18.
But like 21 points, only 21 points is just like pretty disheartening to see. Like, are they actually still going to be able to score even if Timme isn't there?
True. I mean, you've got to show production while you're playing hack-a-shack.
but yeah. So I found
apparently he just got his third according to Edwards. So let's hope the Gales can get something together here, get some points on the board.
So
the only reason why they're sitting him with 3 fouls right now is because they're up by this much. If
Yeah.
it was a close game, they'd leave him in.
Mhm.
well,
This is where they need to take advantage and go on a run.
Yep.
Yep, that's for sure. But something awesome happened earlier tonight before halftime. Drew Timmy is now the leading scorer in Gonzaga basketball history.
Crazy.
Oh,
Great player.
I want to see. Is Timmy gonna be? Do you guys think that Timmy can be a NBA starter?
That's a good question. I don't know, but he could definitely be a draft steal. That's for sure.
I think it's possible. I mean, he's not as quick as some of these guys that they have now, and he's not as tall as some of these guys that are in the NBA. I mean, players like Giannis and Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic, they've just broken the game from the center position. But which is why these guys like Drew Timmy, Trace Jackson Davis are still in college.
Yeah.
But I think that Drew Timmy could be in the NBA. I mean, he can shoot a little bit, and he has gotten quicker. But it's just, I mean, it's great for college basketball that these guys are staying longer. Like Armando Bacot, Hunter Dickinson, Oscar Tshiebwe, Zach Edey, Trace Jackson Davis, Drew Timmy. It's awesome. But it hurts them because they can't go pro when they're all really good players. But the NBA has just changed the way it's being played, and that's why they're not in the league.
Oh, here's
the NIL helps a bit though with staying.
Well, here's a great player that stayed the full 4 years, like way before the NIL. Shabazz Napier. That guy, oh man, he was fantastic at Connecticut. Got 2 national titles.
I felt like that last title that they won. Okay, go, Mike. Sorry.
Oh no, you're good. You're good.
I felt like, was he the really boring final against Butler? Was that, or is that Kemba? I'm sorry, my UConn knowledge isn't that great.
Yeah, Cardiac Kemba Walker.
Yeah. I was a snoozer of a final.
Yeah, UConn was really, really good when I was little. They were great.
Oh, man.
The end of the Jim Calhoun era. But then, you know, it's been bad for a while, but they're getting better.
They're better than they were.
This season, they started out 14-0, then they just collapsed. But they're on a roll again. They're peaking at the right time, so maybe they'll make a run in March. They have the potential. It's 46-24 now in Gonzaga with 15 left in the game.
Yeah, to Jeffrey's point, I'm looking at ESPN right now, and it says 99.1% chance Gonzaga wins.
It's not looking good.
Yeah. UConn got a big commit, too, so that's good for them.
So, as far as the NBA, who do we think would be next in line? Because you know Adam Silver's on this short list as the next owner of Disney.
Oh, is that for real, man?
It's got to be the easiest job to be a commissioner of the NBA. I feel like it's definitely easier than because NHL and MLB are on the down. NFL, I feel like you just have so much on your plate, and then NBA is still on the way up. So I think there's going to be a lot of good candidates to replace Adam Silver for sure.
I'll say this: Adam Silver, when he smiles, he looks like Venom from Spider-Man. I mean, that's gotta be rough. Like when you're smiling, some kid goes, "Hey, Venom." Oh man.
So to your point, do you think we're getting too many transitions or possible transitions with the realignment, or do you just not like realignment at all? Because you know there was also the report of Clemson and Florida State coming to the Big Ten or the SEC. In my opinion, Florida State fits better in the Big Ten.
Well, I mean, the problem is that you're just getting to a point where it's becoming obvious that the Big Ten and the SEC are just going to be the two dominant conferences, and the others are not going to be able to compete at all. And that's the unfortunate thing. I mean, it is what it is, but that's what's going on. I mean, you had it where the conferences were fairly roughly even back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And then the first batch of realignment happened. The Big East disintegrated. You lost the teams from the Big 12 going to the Pac-12 and the Big 10 and the SEC. And then, it was starting to show signs what was going on. And now we're just at a point where all these teams that are good and these other conferences want to go to these two because they're the biggest ones. They're making the most money. I just liked it better when they were even. We're at a point now where it's never going to go back. So at this point, it just doesn't even matter anymore.
I mean, because, the way it's all trending is like the FBS is going to somehow break away. And it's going to be formatted like the NFL. You've got AFC, which could be the Big Ten. You've got the NFC, which could be the SEC. And then you have a bunch of teams in both conferences broken down into different divisions. And so, personally, I'm torn because I like the idea, but at the same time, because we're going to be getting these different names in the Big Ten, at the same time, I do agree with you, and it's also causing a mess of things.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, again, it's making it where the other conferences can't compete. I mean, the Big Ten and the SEC are just going to be so big and large that the ACC and the Big 12 and the Pac-12 are just going to be conferences that exist, but they're not going to have any of the teams that made them what they were.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Pac-12 is not SMU, San Diego State. It's USC, UCLA. The ACC is not whatever team that they add in the future. It's what they're going to be losing in Clemson, Florida State if they leave. The Big 12 was Texas, Oklahoma, Nebraska in the past. Those teams. When you get rid of them and they all go to the Big Ten and the SEC, it makes those other conferences lose their identity. They're not even really conferences anymore, even though they are.
I mean,
they're not the way they used to be anyway.
If you think about it, the Pac-12 has just become like an infection of itself, so to speak, because
it's sad.
Basically imploded on itself. Because USC, UCLA left, come join the real big boys. Then you had Oregon and Washington put in an application to come join the big boys. And then you had the other team that's in jeopardy.
Guys, can I say something? I feel like it just reminds me of that SpongeBob episode with Oregon, Washington. They're stuck at Weenie Hut Juniors, man. They're stuck at Weenie Hut Juniors, and they want to join. They want to join like the real Weenie Hut.
Well, and I think Oregon.
But I gotta go, guys. But fun talking to you guys again. I just wanted to pop in just because I'm pretty busy with spring break with my friends and stuff. So, but awesome talking to you guys.
Sounds like a party.
Yeah, you too. Whoever's in the background.
Well, I'm out of the area now, man. I didn't want you guys to hear all the background noise. I'll see you guys later.
Later.
Sounds good, man.
But I mean, I don't know, cause like.
So who's at the Super Weenie Hut Juniors? I mean, I know we covered who's at the Weenie Hut Juniors, but who's at the Super Weenie Hut Juniors in realignment?
Whoever it is, it's donezo for them. It's all over. I mean, you might as well just quit.
Like Washington State.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel bad for those teams. I mean, they're getting left behind. It's so bad.
I mean, because basically, so then you had those, and then you've got Arizona, Arizona State, Washington State, Oregon State made contact with the Big 12. Now, the Big 12 only considered it because the Big 12 is the next one that's going to implode. Mm-hmm. I just have this weird feeling, and it's not because I hardly watch any gold and blue dude anymore. So it has nothing to do with being a true believer of the gold and blue. Because I know he's talked about something like that before. But these conferences are just asking for too much money with the TV deals. Because essentially it comes down to the TV deals that just ruined everything.
Yes.
In the long run.
St. Mary's is 8th in the net. And Gonzaga is 9th in the net.
Wow.
St. Mary's has a higher net ranking than Gonzaga. That's insane.
Wow.
I mean, but again, back to your point, the TV money is the big reason that all this stuff has happened. I mean, it is what it is. There's no other explanation for it. Mm-hmm. It's probably going to happen. It's probably going to happen. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we really can't stop it at this point. Gonzaga is now at 50-26. I mean, I was really hoping this would be a close game. I mean, it's like the first half, it was starting out pretty good, but man, Gonzaga's just running away with this thing. They're like the Big Ten SEC stomping on the Big 12 or the Pac-12 right now on St. Mary's. This is what's going on, it feels like.
Because I mean, with all the moves that you're seeing in realignment, I mean, the Pac-12 has crumbled to the point you're basically reaching out and begging to the nearest group of 5 teams to come in, accept your offer to come into the conference and save the conference, because Pac-12 is on its last leg. If Clemson, Florida State, and Miami leave the ACC like it is projected, I had confirmation on it happening, but I'll leave it at that. If they do leave, because it's still nothing has officially come out. If they do leave, the ACC is crumbling. So who do we see the ACC try to bring in to save them? You've already seen that it takes 4 group of 5 teams to replace 2 Power 5 teams, because the Big 12 went and got UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, and BYU. And if you ask me, BYU should have been in a Power 5 conference years ago, because BYU has the capability to be a Power 5 school.
Mm-hmm. They got great fan support in football.
Buckeye Mike, if Clemson, Florida State, Miami did wind up leaving the ACC, I got a feeling in my bones that the ACC would get Appalachian State, Tulane, and 1 or 2 other schools from the American Athletic Conference.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, and it's a good point. It's a good point. But to your point, the only way these conferences are going to, quote unquote, save themselves at this point is to pull a group of 5 teams. And then what does that do for the group of 5 conferences? You're basically, one way or another, you're either forcing conferences to pull up to make schools a bigger rating than they are, or you're forcing conferences to, by de facto losing teams, dissolve in the long run. I mean, because if what you're saying is true, and it does happen that like App State, maybe James Madison, Marshall, or whoever gets plucked, Coastal and Tulane, if they get plucked from the American or the Conference USA or whatever they're in.
Oh, Coastal's in the Sun Belt.
That's right, Sun Belt. If they get pulled from those, where does that leave the American, the Sun Belt, and Conference USA? You now forcing them.
State.
You're now forcing them to reach down into the FCS and pull FCS schools up to try to save their conference, which I'm not against. But to your point, the whole realignment thing has just caused a massive crashing wave across the country, conference-wise, because now you're just screwing with all the conferences altogether.
Well, it's a domino effect. All you got to do is, like you just said, basically is see what happens when you take a team from a conference. You have to have a team to replace that team, and it goes down the line.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then eventually you're affecting these small conferences that have been established for years, and it just messes everything up. And then overall, it's like you're losing the rivalries that have mattered. You're losing the identity of these leagues that they used to be, and it's just not the same.
Yeah, because I mean, like, for example, by the time this is all over, it's possible we could see Mount Union, the Alabama powerhouse of Division III, who is up here in Ohio. We could eventually see them go from Division III to at least Division II by the time all of this is over, and you basically have squandered everything and you can't make any more moves.
Right.
But I mean,
But on the bright side of Texas, Oklahoma joining the SEC, we do get to see Texas and Texas A&M come back, and we get to see the Texas Arkansas game come back as a conference game. So that's a plus right there.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there are some positives, but I still think the negatives.
There's too many negatives that outweigh positives.
You're gonna have some realignment, bring back old rivalries by default, but majority of it would have been better off for college football if the conferences were the way they used to be.
I would just, if I were the SEC, I'd ask if I could give back Missouri and trade for Oklahoma State. I mean, that's just
Well, I mean, if you want to trade Missouri, you're going to have to trade A&M too, because
no. Don't trade Texas A&M. Trade Missouri only.
I mean, A&M's only had two bright spots since they've come to the SEC: the Manziel years and the Kellen Mond years, and they wasted the Kellen Mond years because of Kevin Sumlin.
All right, but think about it.
Kellen Mond had a Jimbo.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 2018 was that last 2018 game of the regular season against LSU was pretty awesome. 2020 is pretty fantastic for Kellen Mond. But, yeah, if you trade Missouri back to the Big 12 for Oklahoma State, here's benefits. Oklahoma State rivalry is and Missouri can go back to playing Kansas every year. And they get to reunite with Iowa State, Kansas State, whatever, And, they'll go back to having an easier time winning. When they were in the Big 12, not winning as much in the SEC. I mean, yeah, Oklahoma State's not going to be able to win as much, but they get to have more cracks at Texas, reunite with Texas A&M, and they get to reunite with their old good buddies, Oklahoma. And they could have a new rivalry with Arkansas with that. But I know it would never happen, but it's fun to imagine these things.
Do you guys think that Gonzaga should go to the Big 12, or do you think they should stay in the West Coast Conference? Me personally, I think they should stay in the West Coast Conference because the level of competition suits them to succeed. If they go to the Big 12, we're going to have to play a much tougher team, especially if Mark Few retires. They could start going downhill. That's just me. I know they're not going to leave because of, of the level of play, who they're going to play. It's going to be because of money and, TV stuff. But what do you guys think about that?
Ooh, that's a good question because, I mean, you get tougher, better competition in the Big 12. But, in the West Coast Conference, you still get to play St. Mary's every year. But besides that, nobody's going to stay up late watching Gonzaga San Francisco or Gonzaga Santa Clara. I mean, that's sad, but that's the unfortunate reality. But at the same time, the con for Gonzaga being in the Big 12 would be the travel cost. Good Lord, the travel cost. But you get the reunite with BYU as a conference opponent. And you get to play Houston, Kansas State, Iowa State on a pretty big annual basis. But I don't know. I mean, that's a good question.
I mean, it's a good question. But I mean, okay, so last year, I think it was around this time, maybe January or February, I was listening to a podcast called Ear Biscuits. It was two quote unquote lifelong friends talking about life for a long time around the dimly lit table, is their punchline, as they say. So the older guy said in one episode, my kid's looking at colleges and we love basketball because he did play basketball in high school, as he likes to brag about all the time. And they went to check out, I believe it was San Francisco, or they were somewhere in the area around San Francisco, because they do live in California. So he said, so we went and watched San Francisco play Gonzaga. My son looked at me after the game. He said, my son looked at me after the game and said, I'm glad we got to see Gonzaga because they're my favorite team, but I'm sorry we wasted your money, Dad.
Wow.
Well, they got beat.
Oh, man.
Yeah, because the game they went to, Gonzaga mopped the floor with San Francisco.
I mean, the problem is that either way you go, there are cons. I mean, staying where they're at, it prevents Gonzaga from getting enough exposure outside of the non-conference games. But to me, if they go to a major conference like the Big 12, they're not going to have nowhere near as much success unless they're able to, recruit at a high level because they're in the Big 12, at that point. But still, to me, I just think Gonzaga's better suited where they're at right now. I mean, I understand that they want to go, if they want to move and they want to move them while they have Mark Few.
Right.
Look at Wichita. They went from dominating the Missouri Valley.
Yeah.
Greg Marshall gets fired because of, stuff that happened. And now Wichita State's in the American and they're horrible. You never hear of them.
That's
what I'm afraid for Gonzaga in the Big 12 if Mark Few's gone.
Yep.
They're just going to end up being one of the worst teams in the conference.
I mean, to your point, if Gonzaga was going to make the move, they should have done it a long time ago. Like when they first had Mark Few. Because if you would have had him there for a long time, then Gonzaga could have found a way to build success to compete with the Big 12 and win the Big 12. Now, I don't know. For the university's sake, I think it would be a smart move, and they should eventually make the move. But to your point, it comes down to if you make the move, is it worth it? Will you find enough success to make it worth making the move? The way the Big 12 is built right now, there's some room for success because we don't know what Houston's going to look like next year. We don't know what UCF is going to look like. We don't know what Cincinnati or BYU is going to look like. So that could be guaranteed wins right there. Oklahoma, at the rate they're consistently playing, looks like it could be guaranteed wins because they stink really bad right now.
Even though they beat Alabama by 24 this year,
right.
And they almost beat Kansas, and they beat TCU by 14 the other night. They're the worst team in the conference, and they're still pretty good.
I mean, they have their moments, obviously. Anybody can have their moments. I mean, I hate going back to it, but Ohio State started 8-3, and look at them now. They are like 3 games below 500.
Yeah.
It's pathetic.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, it's just tough at this point, like looking at this year, to say there are guaranteed wins in the Big 12 for Gonzaga. Maybe in future years, some of these teams aren't playing as well, but the Big 12 has been really good the last few years. I mean, you look at Gonzaga right now; they're up 65-34 on St. Mary's. Why give that up? You're getting to win these games. You're just constantly dominating the league.
You're 1 minute ahead of me, man.
I mean, okay, so here's the thing. Okay, the only way it's smart for them to not leave the conference is if you build off of the success that you get in the regular season and in the conference tournament, win the conference tournament, use that momentum to then turn around and do what you did in 2017 and 2021 in the NCAA tournament. But instead of somehow losing crazily to Baylor in the title, win the freaking thing. Here's the thing. If Villanova can build themselves the right way to beat Carolina and beat a cruddy team like Michigan for the title, then Gonzaga can do it too. They just have to figure out where their recruiting bubble is to find the successful people like that. It's going out and recruiting hard for guys that you realistically know you have no shot of getting. You recruit hard, you pull them in, you show them the pros, you say, hey, we're a small school, but we win our conference almost every year. And on top of that, we are almost built to make a championship run. We are missing like one or two key pieces. So it's possible. That's the only way I could see it being worth staying. If you're looking at it from a basketball perspective, you either win the title from the WCC or you use the drive to win the title from the Big 12.
Something interesting real quick that you mentioned with Villanova beating Michigan was that I think it's interesting that year that Michigan went all the way to the championship game, only 4 Big Ten teams made it. Since that year, the Big Ten's gotten 8+ teams every single season, and none of them have advanced. So it's kind of ironic that the year the Big Ten was down was the year the Big Ten got a team to the championship game. That could be because the conference was weaker and they had an easier schedule, and Michigan was able to be ready for the tournament. Whereas now that there's so many teams that are around your level, you get beat up in conference play, and that's why teams aren't advancing as far from the Big Ten in the tournament. I just think it's interesting for sure. But how you doing, Edward?
What's up, Eddie?
I'm doing pretty good.
How you feeling about this game?
I mean, I kind of expected it.
Mm-hmm.
Gonzaga, as much people want to talk crap about them, it's rare that they lose games of this magnitude.
Mm-hmm.
So I know St. Mary's is a decent team and all that, but still, it's still Gonzaga and Mark Few, so I still expect them to win these games.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I was definitely hoping it would be a closer game. You know, we could be talking about in the second half. We've kind of gone off the rails. We're talking about Big 12 and football realignment because there's just not much going on here, but still a high quality game. But since you're here, I mean, how do you feel like with Clemson? In your opinion, how many games do you think Clemson's going to have to win in the ACC tournament to make the tournament, the NCAA tournament?
I mean, I don't know. The people that have done seeding hate Clemson no matter how good of a record they have. And shoot, they put out, a thing today, quad 1 wins versus opposing teams, and Clemson is 10th on that list out of all the teams in the country, and every other team on the list is in the tournament except Clemson. So it's just amazing how that works. You got Auburn in the tournament, and they have nowhere close to the resume that Clemson has. You also has Wisconsin in the tournament. This is based on Joe Lauren, like the guys who do this for a living. They've broken this stuff down. Clemson has a better resume than Wisconsin has.
Mm-hmm.
But, they're still not – they're still the next 4 team out.
Yeah.
They have Duke making the tournament at the moment over Clemson, and Duke lost to Clemson and has a worse record than Clemson. But, I mean, this is just things that, make no sense to me when it comes to these things.
The only reason Wisconsin's in the tournament, and this is an interesting thing that has to do with it, is because since the Big Ten's been so tough this year, with all the teams being good, except like the bottom 3 or 4 teams or whatever, Wisconsin playing all those tough teams and having, enough quality wins or whatever is why they're in the field in some brackets and outside the field barely in others. Do I think they should be a tournament team? No, but that's how they look at it. And they're looking at the ACC this year is just bad. Now, to your point, technically in some aspects, Clemson has a better resume than Duke, and they did beat Duke, but it's Duke, and Duke's, actually like the end of the season since that Virginia game, they've won every game since, whereas Clemson did stumble a bit down the stretch. And unfortunately, I do think that the committee takes into account, even though they'll never say it, more of the teams that are normally there. And Clemson's not a team that's normally there. And Clemson was really struggling for like a 3 or 4 game stretch when they barely beat Florida State and they lost to Boston College or Georgia Tech or something like that. And they were just struggling. But I mean, do I think Clemson should be in the tournament? Yes. especially with how weak the bubble is. But unfortunately, they're gonna make Clemson have to win a game or two in the ACC tournament. And specifically, if NC State wins the first round game against, I think, Virginia Tech, who they have to play, that is a must win for Clemson. If Clemson can beat NC State in that game, then I think it could propel them into the tournament.
I mean, we've beaten NC State once, so.
Mm.
Well, see, that's the funny thing. It's like, oh, Clemson needs to win a game or two. Well, if they win 2 games, they win the ACC tournament. Clemson has the double bye. I mean, I don't know how you – and, for example, that same Boston College team just went on and beat Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, yeah, it's a bad loss, but at the same time, is that not a bad loss for Virginia, who Virginia is right now expected to be a top 4 seed in the –
I mean, I agree with you. It's definitely a little bit, for every team, they do treat a little differently, narratively anyway. I mean, I agree with you.
I mean, you look at, like, Michigan here, who they have in the tournament right now. Michigan against quad 1 teams and above are 3-11.
Mm-hmm.
Impressive. And they're in the tournament.
3-11 is not very good.
No, it's not. It's horrible. It's actually the worst record out of all the teams on this list. They're dead last, but they're still in the tournament above Clemson.
Yeah, ironically, Indiana, they lost to Indiana by 1 point at home, and they lost at Indiana by 2 points in overtime. If they had beaten Indiana both those times, then Michigan would be in the tournament fairly safely, but they fell short in both those games, and that's why they're where they're at. But to your point, they didn't win those games. They do have a poor record, but it's like, oh, it's Michigan, and it's because they let them in last year with a record like that, and they made the Sweet 16. I think that's part of it.
And they're 3-8 in their conference against quad 1 teams.
Mm-hmm.
3-11 against all quad 1 teams, and they're 3-8 in their own conference against them. It's pretty impressive. Clemson is 4-3 and 4-2 against quad 1 teams in their conference.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look at Pitt, for example, and this is why, like, I could care less personally if Clemson makes it. I want our coach fired. That's all I care about, so we can actually have a productive basketball program. But you look at Pitt. Pitt was 1 win away from winning the regular season ACC record, or ACC, the outright regular season ACC champions. And right now they have them as a borderline first team out. They were 1 win away from winning the ACC, and now they're out of the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
What sense does that even make?
I agree with
you. And they still, like, all the best teams in the country, you have more ACC teams on this list here for quad 1 wins against quality opponents. It's the Big 12, the ACC, and then the Big 10. But the ACC is a bad basketball conference right now, even though they're the second best basketball conference in the nation at the moment. When we played the Big 10 in the Big 10 Challenge, we beat them by double the number of wins they got against the ACC. So that just proves head-to-head we beat them.
Yeah, I think the issue with the ACC is kind of the Pac-12's problem with image. Even though the Pac-12 is a better league this year, the bottom of the Pac-12 is bad. Like with California, and some of the other teams at the bottom of the Pac-12. The ACC has Louisville, and the ACC has Notre Dame and Georgia Tech, and all these teams at the bottom that have really played bad. Whereas the Big Ten outside of Minnesota, every team's been competent at one point or another.
And if you really want
one of those things where they're looking at it like that, whether that's right or not, is part of it.
See, I view it as a different way. I view it as, since Duke and North Carolina isn't at the top of the conference is down. That's exactly how I view it. Everybody's like, oh, well, Duke and North Carolina suck, so the conference must suck. because those are the only two brands in basketball that people respect.
What's that have to do with anything?
It doesn't, but that's how a lot of people equate conferences to things.
Stupid.
When bad teams are bad, the conference is bad. It happens.
This was me.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't write that. I think of all those, Carolina's the one that could make the NIT because they're on the outside right now.
And they should
They
be.
don't want to get into.
I mean, it doesn't look good. I mean, North Carolina and Duke have both not looked good. I'll give you Duke's look better down the stretch, but you literally look, if you watch Duke basketball closely, they struggle to score a lot of the times. Their defense isn't great. They're luckily Blake Lively or Derek Lively has come along defensively and he's not hurt anymore, because otherwise, I mean, Kyle Filipowski's a great freshman, but I mean, Roach isn't that good. As much people want to hype him up, Roach has not been that good.
Mm-hmm.
Not compared to when they get Roach, watch out. Man, that it just hasn't happened. Their point guard play in Proctor has been below average. He's a below average scorer. The team is literally hanging on by a freshman named Kyle Filipowski, who's just a monster. And Whitehead's pretty good. But you're looking at Roach, who people expected him to average like 19 points. The dude just got to 14 points a game. He's like 14.3 points a game, which isn't really great when your freshman scoring 19. It's baffling to me when it comes to these types of things, because I really think if Duke and North Carolina was good, the ACC would hold more volume for a lot of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And teams they're not really, you look at like Virginia, who's projected a top 4 seed at the moment. They're the third best team in the ACC. And they have a higher seed than Miami does.
Mm-hmm.
Miami's projected an 8 seed. And they beat Virginia twice. They beat Clemson. But hey, they're an 8 seed. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense at all.
And if you really look at it, Miami's probably the scariest team in the country.
Well, yeah, you got to have good guard play to win in March, which is why the whole time I felt that Gonzaga could potentially lose early because their guard play hasn't been that great. You know, it hasn't playing better as of late, but Miami is a team that has good guard play, and that's what makes them dangerous. They probably have the best guard play by far in the ACC.
They literally, there's a saying that people, it's like they have more guards than Shawshank. They literally have they start 4 guards. They start 4 guards and 1 center. And the one person they list as a forward is Jordan Miller, who played guard back-to-back years, but this year they moved him to forward just to fill out the roster. So it doesn't say guard, center. And then when they come off the bench, they're 4 guards deep. I mean, you look at like Nigel Pack when he transferred from Kansas State. The dude is a walking 20-point just scorer.
Mm-hmm.
He has limitless range. He handles the ball. He's got tight handles. He can deliver. You got Isaiah Wong, who's just the ACC Player of the Year. I mean, it's just baffling how this stuff just is looked at like, oh, well, no big deal. The brands are Duke, North Carolina, and Virginia. Virginia's the 4 seed. Why is Miami not the projected 4 seed? Why are they projected an 8 seed?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Miami should be higher. I mean, they only have like 6 losses, and they, outside of a couple of bad performances, they've been pretty solid all year. I think that Miami's a team that on paper they project well for March. They do have some good wins, even though the resume is a bit weaker than some of the others. Their non-conference is a big problem. They don't have a lot of big non-conference, resume wins or whatever. But I think that overall, if you look at Miami, they should be ranked at the top or the second highest team in the ACC in the tournament because of the way they've been playing, and they should be higher than where they're projected.
And I mean, to something y'all said earlier when I first came in, the reason why Gonzaga is leaving to go to the Big 12 is because they want to play against better opponents.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, playing against better opponents will be a good look for them, but they won't be dominating the Big 12.
Well,
they won't be winning like they do now.
That's not the problem. The problem is they go to the tournament and they've played nothing but weak opponents, and then they struggle against quality teams.
Mm-hmm.
You look at every year they make it to like the Final Four because they're able to get a top seed and they play against weaker opponents, and then they make it to Elite Eight or the Final Four where they're playing a quality opponent and they struggle because, one, they do not see the guard play or the physicality from the center like you do in the Mountain West compared to the Big 10, Big 12, SEC or the ACC, and then they struggle. And it's usually a bad struggle where they get humiliated. I mean, a lot of these Gonzaga losses aren't good losses for them in the tournament. That's one of the reasons why they're making the move. They want to play against an opponent from night in and night out that's going to be at a higher quality than what they're playing at right now. And yeah, that doesn't mean the Mountain West isn't good this year, but over the lifetime of the last 10 years, how many times can you say the Mountain West has been a top conference or a better conference than they are right now? Not many. Most of the time they walk the conference like there's nobody even there. So
even though it's just us in here, St. Mary's finally decided to do what I said they needed to do and have gone on a small run here, even though it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. They closed out the game on a 9-0 run, which you needed a lot more of, and it has almost gone final. It's been over since halftime, realistically, but
it just ended. Gonzaga is the West Coast Conference tournament champions. They beat St. Mary's, and they went 2-1 against the Gales, beating them 77-51 in the West Coast Conference final. I mean, they dominated this game. I mean, St. Mary's, they're a good team, but this loss is going to hurt their tournament seeding. They might drop a seed line. Hopefully for them, not for the dreaded 6. If they're a 6 seed, they could get upset in the first round. They needed to be a 5 seed. Maybe they still can be. This was a really bad loss because you lost by this much.
Yeah.
Big win for Gonzaga, and big for Drew Timme to be the all-time leading scorer now in Gonzaga history. And even if he never wins a national championship, they went to one. Didn't win against Baylor, but he's had a great career, and Gonzaga is a much better program to have had him than if they didn't. This was a dominating performance for Gonzaga that should set them up well for the NCAA tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Then, to a question that I think Will asked earlier, is Timme an NBA starter? No, he's a player. The unfortunate reality of Drew Timme is he's not athletic enough. He doesn't play defense well enough. He doesn't rebound with enough athleticism and physicality that he needs, or does he shoot the ball at an extremely high level? The only way I can view him as a starter is if magically he gets more athletic and becomes Kelly Olynyk. Kelly Olynyk, coming out of Gonzaga, carved a niche in the game for himself. He was a decent rebounder, but he played with an edge. If you watch the way he played, people call him a little dirty, but he was willing to elbow you and try to fight for rebounds when he knew he couldn't have a jump you. He also could shoot the three. He's shooting the three right now at 42% in the NBA right now. He's a top 10 NBA three-point shooter in the league. I mean, that's impressive. It's the unfortunate reality of the NBA where it's gotten so elite athletically that it kind of weeds the non-athletic out. He can be a solid bench player. There's no doubt about that, in my opinion, where he's like maybe the second or third big off the bench for some of these teams, but he can't be a starter. He's just not athletic enough. I mean, shoot, you look at like Sabonis, who's not very athletic, but when you really watch his game, he's actually pretty athletic. He's able to get – I mean, he almost averages a triple-double. And you look at Jokic, who's not very athletic, but when you watch Jokic play, he gets to everywhere he wants to get to. You don't stop him. He looks slow-moving, but you still can't stop him. It's like Luka. Luka's not very fast, but Luka gets to wherever he wants to get to on the court. He's got a different type of athleticism to him. He's not like Ja Morant. I know what all the stuff he's got going on that just explodes off your screen, or like who just explodes off your screen. Like those guys are just different type of athletes. For example, I said Zion wasn't going to do very well in the NBA due to his injury concern, and he hasn't. He's only like 60 games in the NBA for 4 years of his career. Now, when he's healthy, he looks like he can be, because of his athleticism, he looks like he can be everything people want him to be. But 6'6", 300 pounds, you blow your knees out pretty quickly. And he does that almost every year. He's missed almost 50 games now this season.
Yeah, it's really tough. He's going to have to stay healthy for sure if he's going to have a great NBA career. You just can't be that, big and not get hurt often. For the people that have just popped in, again, big win for Gonzaga over St. Mary's. Like I said a little earlier, should help them out big time, coming into the NCAA tournament. I mean, I think overall looking at this game shows what Gonzaga can be. They've been a bit inconsistent this season, but they have shown to be a team, especially in this game with their 77-51 win over St. Mary's, that at their best, they're still a team that can be really good if their guards play consistently. St. Mary's, I mean, they're a solid team, but they kind of got exposed tonight potentially as a team that maybe isn't, capable of playing with, the more talented teams on a consistent basis. Gonzaga's really improved their stock for the tournament. St. Mary's could unfortunately drop to the 6th seed line, which could really hurt their chances of advancing far in the tournament. And for all of the viewers, if there's any new viewers, subscribe to the channel, Only Talk Sports. If you want to see more content like this, might be doing some more lives and some, big games in the future and some more content. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. It was a great game, even though it wasn't a close game. For the second half, we had Mike from Inside the Pylons, Jackson, Will stopped by, and we got Edward. It's been a lot of fun. It's a great game overall, like I said, even though it wasn't that close. But it doesn't always have to be close to be a good game, especially when you've got, great people to talk about games with. But that's probably going to about wrap it up for us. The game ended. It was, like I said, a lot of fun. Unfortunately for St. Mary's, it just couldn't keep the game close, but it's still high-level basketball, especially for Gonzaga. You guys have any parting thoughts before we wrap it up?
My parting thought is I wonder if we're going to see if that St. Mary's VCU game will happen now. That'll be pretty cool.
It could happen. You never know.
Oh, yeah. 6-11 or 7-10 going up against one another. You never know.
I would just say that. Go ahead.
I'll just say this game really came down to the bigs. Gonzaga just has more talent down low, and they were able to honestly get rebounds whenever they wanted them. There was very few times in that game where I was just like, St. Mary's is just dominating the boards. Gonzaga was just able to dominate the boards. And when you can grab defensive rebounds and offensive rebounds at will, it makes the game hard to play for the opposing team. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, St. Mary's just could not stop Timmy, and when they did, they were just getting wide open threes. And they just couldn't stop. If Gonzaga was missing their shots, then there could have been a shot. But overall, St. Mary's just could not get the job done, and their defense let them down, and so did their offense. and that's why Gonzaga cruised to victory. What's your final thoughts, Mike?
For this, I would just say, regular dominating performance from Gonzaga overall. They showed heavy duty on the offensive side with the boards and just a shutout performance overall on the defensive side, shutting down key players, not letting St. Mary's go on a run of really any sort until it was basically over and it was too late in the game to make a difference. To your point, yes, St. Mary's may drop, but we still got a lot of basketball to play, gentlemen. So depending on the outcomes of the next few days, St. Mary's could drop, St. Mary's could rise, St. Mary's could just plateau and stay where they're at. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I hope to come back on with at least one of you guys about one of these games. And, we'll just have to wait and see, and it should be fun.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. To your point, I think that is a great, point to bring up about what happens in these other games could play a factor. I mean, it was a bad way to go out for St. Mary's, and last impressions are important, and that was a bad way to go out. But if a lot of other teams lose in these conference tournaments, then you never know. St. Mary's could stay in the top 5 seed line and, be in great shape for the tournament. But if not, you're still going to be the higher seed. You're just going to have to go out there and do the best you can to get the win, even though it's going to be a lot harder playing against an 11 or a 10, wherever St. Mary's is at. But like you said, it's going to be a lot of fun, breaking down, some more of these games. Might do some more live reactions on here. Might bring you guys on again, to do some more commentary, stuff like that. It's been a lot of fun. Like, comment, subscribe, everybody. It's a great game.
Ring the bell so you never miss another video or live stream. And as one of our good buddies likes to say, it builds morale. It makes you feel better, and it makes you feel good and important. So ring that bell so you never miss anything.
It's been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to be back on here soon, talking some more college basketball and football and anything else going on in sports. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Have a good one, fellas.